Okay, we are very excited about tonight's guest, Dr. Dan Ritchie. And I don't want to say this to the others, but I think you're the most popular so far, Dan. So, as far as our Zoom and Facebook series, so so far so good. And I'm gonna give a little intro about you, but I do want to. I'm Janice Jakes, the owner of the Fitness Fest Conference and Expo, and I just wanted to talk about how you and I, for a second, just how I got to know you. I always tell this story and I always elaborate it and embellish it. And you're not going to catch me on the embellishment, Dan. Well, you can if you want to. So it was, I don't remember if it was 9 or 10 years ago that we launched your FAI certification at the Jewish Community Center in Scottsdale, right? And
11
I
years ago.
was it 11? Dang. Um, and we didn't know you and Cody, Dr. Cody Sipe, co-founders of FAI, the Functional Aging Institute, of course. You guys are so famous, like everybody already knows this already, but I'll say it anyway. And so we didn't really know you, and you found us somehow, and we had the certification at the J in Scottsdale, and like, whoa, all of a sudden we had like 65 people, and I'm like, I don't know if these guys can handle this. We are shutting it down. Like, who are these guys who think they can handle all those people? And you guys years ago, like, no, we can take more. Like, no. So we bring them on, right? That's the way I feel too. But so we sold out, and I want to say the rest is history, but there's so much in between because you hired us to help you find your venues and the start, the first probably 2 or 3 years of the hotel. And I remember Emily was there, and the FAA summits, we had in Phoenix, and then you had in other cities and all that. And all of a sudden, 11 years ago, you're in all these countries and so like well known for working with older adults. And the ISSA, we can say all that, right?
Yep.
Because
Yep.
not everybody knows that
Yeah.
ISSA, which is a huge superpower in the continuing education world,
Yeah.
acquired you.
Yep.
And of course, you're still, working with them, and you're going to be at Fitness Fest doing some amazing things. A great pre-con, and Cody's doing the brain fitness, and then you're doing some workshops that we'll talk about at the end. But just there's no one better to talk to than you guys, than you, Dan, about working with older adults. And so we're going to talk about 3 tips for training older adults and 3 tips for marketing to them. You've got a long bio, and you said, it's okay. Don't go on and on about me. I would personally go on and on about me if I were you. But you did get your master's degree, okay, your master's degree in health and physical education at Wisconsin. You've got so much here. You started in Missouri State, but then your PhD from Purdue, which of course is amazingly prestigious, as is everything else. And then in 2014, the PFT Trainer of the Year. And then shortly after that is when you and Cody co-founded the Functional Aging Institute.
Yep.
So, and you've been pretty much last 2024, I think, was the only year that you haven't been at Fitness Fest, and you were sorely missed. So we're really glad that you're going to be back here April 3rd through the 6th in Phoenix. So let's just jump right in on 3 tips and anything else you want to say about yourself.
Yeah.
Does everyone have their bingo cards?
Oh,
Started their bingo cards? We'll get them
oh, wait,
started.
Nicole's talking about bingo. Somebody was going to have to mute her. This is what happens when we talk. That was funny, Nicole. Okay, sorry, Dan. Go ahead.
So, yeah, I mean, you kind of laid out the history. 2014 is when we launched the Functional Aging Institute, and had one of the largest functional aging specialist workshops with you guys right out of the gate. And we're like, oh, we're sort of onto something here. It took us
We're onto something, yeah.
several years before we topped that one. I think we had 75 in Orlando one time at an ICAA event. But yeah, we're in 34 countries now. The functional aging movement, I think, is finally sort of reaching its tipping point. Like, people are jumping on board. And I was talking to Paul Holbrook of Age Performance the other day. He's like, have you noticed that everyone's a functional aging expert all of a sudden? Everybody's talking about longevity
Right.
tips and fitness for aging. And I'm like, well, there's some
They're all
good and there's some
copying you.
well, there's
Yeah.
some good and there's some bad there, right? I mean, I think sometimes trainers realize, hey, I got to start training older adults, but they don't really realize they haven't learned anything about it, you know. So I always caution people: make sure you get some education. You know, our certification is still the gold standard for training older adults. There's not one that's been put out that has more science and not just science, right? I mean, we tested a lot of this stuff on over 2,000 clients. So it's not just research based, it's evidence and actual hands-on experience. So at Fitness Fest, I'll be doing the functional aging specialist workshop, the one we did back in 2014. Cody will be doing a new one, the brain fitness coach. I think we're going to see in the next 10 years an explosion in interest in brain health as the boomers get older.
Yeah.
The biggest population in U.S. history, they're now all in their 60s and 70s, right? The last of them turned 60 last year. And what's the biggest fear they have? Outliving their
Losing our minds.
yeah, losing their minds, losing their marbles, outliving their brain, right? Like it doesn't do any good to live to 90, but your brain stopped at 84. So
Yeah.
I think that's going to be even bigger than the fitness industry. In fact, brain health is already a multi-billion-dollar industry, and most of it is gimmicky stuff, right? Supplements that may or may not work, brain games that may or may not work. But we're going to see an explosion in evidence-based stuff. So let me give you the 3 tips for training older adults quickly, and then I can give you the 3 tips for marketing, and then I don't know how long you guys want to do questions, but the 3 tips for training older adults. The first one I always say is about functional ability. And so I think the mistake we make is we think age, not function, right? And so can you be really old at 60? Yes. But some 60-year-olds aren't old at all, right? So it's really about functional ability. So don't come at it from, oh, I'm training a 60-year-old, so therefore it has to be light or senior easy. Or what if the 60-year-old's fitter than you or fitter than your 25-year-old client or stronger or more functional? So it's about functional ability and meeting clients where they're at. Just like one 60-year-old might be super fit, the next 60-year-old might struggle to even walk across the fitness floor, right? So you have this wide range of functional ability. So one 70-year-old is not equal to the next 70-year-old. And some have joint replacements, some don't. Some have cardiovascular issues, some don't. Some have balance risks, some don't. So you have to first and foremost think about functional ability, not age, right? And how do I train this person to maximize function and start to shift your thinking from fitness parameters to function parameters, right? Because at the end of the day, they want to do life better, right? They want to function better, right? Well, what does that mean? I'm a 72-year-old person. What do I have to do to function well, right? I got to be able to climb stairs, carry stuff, pick stuff up, pick up a toddler grandson, you know, carry my groceries in while my dogs are so excited because they haven't seen me in 45 minutes. You know, what do I have to do to function well? Nobody really cares what I can bench press, right? So we got to think about functional ability. The second and the third tip, I more and more Cody and I are just really dialing deep into power and balance. I think strength still gets too much attention. And this is how you know, and this is how you can identify a lot of the non longevity experts because they jump into the field and they go, oh, we got to do strength training for seniors. We got to do strength. We got to get people stronger, sarcopenia, muscle mass. And they haven't looked at the research. Power training, far more effective than strength training when we're talking about impacting functional performance for older adults. Balance training, far more effective for preventing falls and reducing serious injury than strength training. I'm not saying strength training is not important, but it's probably third or fourth on the list of importance. So you can quickly identify, and there's a lot of them out there, right, that are just hammering this strength training stuff. And I'm like, you guys are 20 years behind where the research has been, right? 20 years ago, we talked about strength training for older adults. And now we know, oh boy, I hate when you get phone calls on a Zoom meeting. Now we know that power training is far more significant than strength training. Now, of course, power has a strength component, right? Power is strength times speed. So it's going to have a bigger impact. So if you're training older adults, you've got to be doing power training and you've got to be doing balance training. Now, you might be saying, I'm not sure how to do power training safely with older adults. Well, then if that's the case, you need to take some courses from me and Cody. We even have some free ones. And of course, we'll be at Fitness Fest doing some live ones. I'll be doing a balance session. Cody always talks about power. And in the functional aging specialist, we talk about the difference between power training and strength training. And then balance training, oh my goodness, there's so much great material out there from Dr. Emily Splickle, Dr. Evan Osar, and of course, we've got balance, 2 balance courses in addition to the functional aging specialist. I mean, I think, Janice, right now, we're on the beginning of a national epidemic of fall related injuries, right? We're already
Yeah.
having 2 million people a year show up at the emergency room with significant injuries, over 1 million fractures a year. And those numbers are expected to double by 2030. I mean, it's going to be staggering, right? You're going to show up to the emergency room with a serious illness or whatever, and they're going to go, well, we got 4 hip fractures in front of you. We'll get to you eventually, right? And you're going to be like, how seriously ill do I have to be to get some help around here? It's going to become a national problem. And then, of course, the caregiving for someone who's fractured their spine, fractured their shoulder, fractured their hip is significant, right? And we get to
Yeah.
millions of people. It's significant. So balance training is absolutely critical. 400,000 people a year right now are falling and fracturing their hip. 100,000 of them are dead within a year. So it's a major quality of life issue. So those are my 3 tips for training: functional ability, right? Think of it from functional ability, not age, and then power and balance. And then my 3 marketing tips are really, they're fairly simple. But the first one is build a list. And I basically say of every kind, but I think email is still the most important. But you should have a list of phone numbers, email addresses, mailing addresses, ways you can contact people. I run into trainers all the time and I'm like, how big's your email list? They're like, oh, I don't really have one. I'm like, what do you mean you don't have one? Did you just start yesterday? They're like, oh, no, I've been doing this for 3 years. If you've been doing this for 3 years, you should have an email list of 300 at least, right? I mean, you run into people in Starbucks, you've had former clients, you have current clients, your current clients have spouses. Your email list has to include all of these people, right? If you're going to launch a new program after going through the brain fitness coach in April, you have to be able to tell your email list. You got to be able to text people on your list. You got to be able to mail that out to people. So first and foremost, have a list, build a list. Listen, your most valuable list are the people paying you dollars, right? That's your most valuable list. But everybody else that isn't paying you is a potential customer.
Yeah.
So
Can I
organize
say
that
something
list.
real quick?
Yeah,
Do
go
you
ahead.
think that are these people who are saying this to you, are they younger trainers that like it's all about social media to them, and like an older person is, I mean, I'm an older person and I'm on Instagram and fitness Facebook, but like is it younger trainers or is it just everybody?
It's
It doesn't,
everybody, right? I
yeah,
think I think
it's quite interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
people in their 60s will be like, oh, well, older adults don't have email. And I'm always like, you're 60, you have an email, right? And I'm like,
Right?
but my clients are 80. Well, they probably have an email, right? I mean,
Yeah.
email's 35 years old, right? I mean, like, if you're 75, you probably have had an email address for 20 years. And you certainly have a phone. And if you don't have a smartphone or an email address, you're probably not even a great prospect, right? Unless you
Yeah.
train unless you train the really older senior, right? The over 85, people have emails. So yeah, there are some people in their 20s that are like, email. I'm like,
What's that?
yes,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
email works,
Well,
right?
we own that list. We don't own Facebook and Instagram. You never know for sure.
Absolutely.
And I love what you
Absolutely.
said about the phone numbers, because no one likes to talk on the phone anymore, but older people still do. We
Yep.
still do with Fitness Fest. We
Yeah.
actually call people. We love to talk to people.
It
They may
works.
not
It works.
answer, but yeah. So yeah, keep
It
going. But
works.
yeah, I love
Yeah.
what
I
you
mean,
said.
phone calling people works. Is it a little bit of a hassle? Yes. But
Yes.
if you have 20 phone numbers of past clients or trial clients, if you call 20 of them, you might get 2 new clients, right? You got to do the work, right? So
Hmm.
have those lists. But I think email really is king. The closing thing I'll say with that is the money is in the list, right? So the bigger your list, the more money that there is, right? So you got to have a list. The other 2 are fairly simple. I say go to where your clients are, right? So go to where they're hanging out. So are they hanging out at the Rotary Club, the Kiwanis Club, the Lions Club, the Elks Club, the pickleball club, the country club, the tennis club? Wherever it is, go to where they're hanging out. Now, sometimes you might be like, I don't know where they're hanging out. Well, ask your two best clients, some of the clubs they're involved in. Get invited. All of a sudden, they're like, oh, you want to come to my Kiwanis Club luncheon? I would love to come to that, right? So figure out where it is they're hanging out, who they're hanging out with, and how you can become a part of that. Maybe you'll even get asked eventually to speak on functional ability or functional longevity, right? So you want to start hanging out where they're hanging out. And then the third one is what I call referral strategies, right? So I think too many trainers rely on what we call word of mouth, right? Which basically is hoping, wishing, and praying that your clients bring you more business, right? I mean, think about how many companies run their business that way, right? Does Starbucks sit on the most popular corner in every market because they hope their customers tell other people about them? Absolutely not, right? They run marketing programs, promos, specials, and of course position themselves inside a Target or a Barnes and Noble or put themselves on the most prominent corner. They don't rely on their customers to bring them business, right? So word of mouth's great. You have to, what I call, foster it, create it, make it happen. So how do we do that with referrals? Well, one, of course, we ask more consistently, but we get more creative about how we ask, right? Hey, I would love to buy coffee for you and a friend. Do you think maybe your friend might like to come to a training session sometime? Or could you introduce me? Run a bring a friend week contest, right? Create opportunities for them to introduce you to their friend. So it could be as simple as you send an email to the 10 clients you have and say, hey, by the way, I have 2 openings in February, only 2, but I'd love to give them to your friends or family or people you know. So I need you to email introduce me to one of your best friends, family members who you think would be a good fit to train with me, right? And those are things you're doing every month. So you're not just hoping that your client refers someone to you, you're creating opportunities for them to make that happen, right? Whether it's a bring a friend week, whether it's a referral contest where it's, hey, I'm going to buy lunch for you and your friend if you introduce me to them or they come to a free session. So you want to make word of mouth as easy as possible, coach people to do it, create opportunities for them to do it. In some cases, they're not even aware they're doing it, right? It's like, oh, I didn't realize you were having this special competition where if I bring a friend, I get a free lunch, right? They're not necessarily, now their guards down in terms of like who they're going to tell about you, because fitness is one of the toughest word of mouth things, right? If you go out and have an absolute fantastic steak dinner, you'll tell your friend about it, right? But if you've been working with a trainer, you might not tell your friend about it. I'm kind of shy about it. I'm kind of embarrassed. I'm working with a trainer. I haven't lost enough weight. In fact, if I tell my friend that they need to come see my trainer, they might feel insulted. Like, hey, Nicole, you need to lose 40 pounds too, don't you? You should come train with my trainer, right? Now, Nicole's like, what? Why do you think I need to lose weight, right? I'm picking on Nicole because she's moving around. She probably didn't even hear what I said, right? So,
Setting up the bingo. She did.
yeah. So you have to create easy ways for them to create word of mouth that
Yeah,
allows them to not feel as sort of intimidated by it. So those are my
right.
3 tips on marketing. I think we overcomplicate it, right? There are a lot of boomers and seniors out there, and they don't know you exist, right? Because you're not going where they are. You're not speaking at their clubs. You're not hanging out at their clubs. You're not fostering word of mouth. Your clients are keeping you a secret, and you're not building a list, right? So you can't even follow up or reach out to them. So simplify everything you're doing. Focus on those 3 things, and you'll see your client base grow quickly.
I love it. I hope we have a few questions in that, but of course I do. I have a couple comments or questions. So I know that you have owned and operated Miracles Fitness in West Lafayette, Indiana. Is that how you became so successful? Like the tips you gave, like email list and referral, and a lot of it was probably trial and error, and in the beginning of trial and error, and this is why now this is what works. So
Yeah. So we opened in 2007. And of course, like so many people, we thought, well, we're going to open a fitness center. We'll do a lot of the traditional marketing. We did print ads and we did some TV ads and we did flyers and we did a lot of door to door stuff and mailed postcards and did a lot of all that general advertising that clubs do. And still weren't successful, didn't have as many clients as we would like. And we got some business and marketing coaching, and we realized the primary thing to do is build a list, right? We needed to build a mailing list, a phone call list, and an email list. And when we built our email list to about 2,500, our club numbers just started to take off because we could consistently email out promotions, trials, new offers, all sorts of things. And building that email list was key because then, oh man, we're building a new building. We're going to move. I need $70,000. How am I going to get $70,000? Well, I'm going to run a Labor Day sale and I'm going to send it out to 2,500 people on my email list. Anybody want to sign up for a year of personal training and get a year for free? But you got to pay in full. We did $58,000 on Labor Day that year, right?
Wow.
Because of our email list, right? And then I went to a business coaching event for fitness owners, and I start sharing, and people are like, "What? What do you mean you did 58,000 in one day?" They're like, "How'd you do that?" They thought it was contract money, right? You know, like 500 a month. I was like, "No, no, no! It was paid in full, all in one day."
Wow.
I'm like, "Oh, by the way, while I'm sitting here in this meeting, we just did another 20,000 because people came in on Tuesday, Wednesday."
Well, I'm talking to you, you yo-yo. No.
Yeah. So, but that's the power of the list, right? When you have 30 people say, I'll take your $3,000 personal training paid in full special, right? That's too good to pass up. I learned pretty quickly. And then after we launched the Functional Aging Institute, we've coached now somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 to 80 fitness studio owners. And you know what we've learned time and time again? The email list correlates to the number of clients you have. If your email list is 1,000, for most fitness studios, it's a 10-to-1 ratio. If you have an email list of 1,000, you have 100 personal training clients. 1,500, 150. Now, it's not always that linear, but
but
there's
that's
a
your
direct
average.
correlation to those activities, right? And so, really, the last 10 years now, we've learned that the things that work the best are building an email list, going and
And being
speaking,
consistent with it.
being consistent, speaking at the places where they're hanging out, and then running all sorts of referral opportunities. Because if you have 100 clients, those 100 clients all know one or two people that could be training with you. Your business could double quickly if you can figure out how to get those 100 clients to all refer, right? If you could get them to introduce someone, if you could get them to bring a friend, if you could get them to be like, hey, Bob, they're running a 21-day special. It's normally $99, but because I'm a client, I can get it for you for only $49, right? Like you have to foster ways for your 100 clients to double themselves. And the reality is, in most cases, we want to train more people like the clients we have. We don't want to go out and get people that don't fit. We don't want to have to go train high school kids. We don't want to have to step outside our
You've got your niche, and it's not even a niche because it's such huge. Well, it is, but it's not because it's so huge. But
well, it's giant, right? I mean, I say it's the niche where all the money is, right? But if you really have a bunch of 60-year-old women, that's who you want more of, right? You don't want to bring in a bunch of 30-year-old men because now it doesn't mash, right?
Right.
The women are like, who are these weirdos you brought in, right? So we go to the 60-year-old women and say, bring us all your friends, right?
Yeah.
Tell your sister, tell your neighbor, tell your coworker, we want more of you. And everybody, it just works well for everyone.
Yeah, I love it. I want to go back to what you said. One of the very first is, I think it was the first thing you said about um, train them where they're at. It doesn't matter if they're 60 or 70. And it really, that's so, so true. And it just reminds me back when I used to teach water aerobics at this gym, and they had a senior chair class, and everyone knows who I'm talking about, but I won't mention their name.
Sure.
And anytime, like everyone was seating, like we're all lazy, like two people were standing up, everyone else is sitting because you want me to sit? You want me, can I sit? Great, I'm gonna flip and sit, right? So some of these women would come to my water class, and I'm kind of a kick-ass water aerobics instructor, as you can imagine. And like they were same age or even younger than some of the women in my class. And I don't want to say that they were lame, but like, yeah. And why? Because that was like, let's everybody do the same thing, and everybody's sitting down, and everybody's, and so they weren't, and that wasn't personal training. I know it was group exercise, but still, they weren't
Yeah,
training
but
them. They were never really improving.
right, there's no
So,
progress, right? It violates one of our principles of progressive overload
yeah,
and the principle of specificity, two key pillars in our program, right? So group exercise doesn't mean you can't be progressive, right? Like I
yeah,
don't want, if I'm in a group water aerobics class or if I'm in a group fitness class, I don't want to do the same thing over and over and over again. I mean, it starts to become the definition of insanity, right? It's like if you do the same thing over and over and over again, but you expect different results, no, you should expect no results, right? I mean, whatever
yeah,
benefit you
yeah. So,
got was probably in the first week of that class, and then you just leveled off, right? People
yeah,
aren't going to get, it's the whole joke of, well, you can't lift anything heavier than 2 pounds. Who said, like, if you want to be weak the rest of your life, don't lift anything heavier than 2 pounds, right? Like, you have to move stuff. I'm terrified of your water aerobics class, Janice. I'd probably drown in your class, right? Because it would be too hard for me, right? But it has to be level appropriate. The whole chair-based fitness thing for almost all older adults is inappropriate and ageist because they walk in, wait,
and
they're
then they
all
sit
walking,
for an
and then they
hour.
sit. And how many of them on the questionnaire said, I'm having trouble with falling out of a chair at home, right? I mean, like nobody has trouble with that, right? They're having trouble
Well,
falling.
maybe if you've had too much to drink, Dan. Come on
Well,
now.
sure, but yeah, there no exercise is going to solve that problem. So I mean, it just doesn't make sense, right? People are
Yeah,
falling in their bathroom, they're falling carrying their groceries in, they're falling moving.
yeah.
They've
Trip
got
over
to
the
be
dog's
stronger.
leash, stuff like that.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
don't need to be exercising sitting down unless it serves a purpose, right? Like if you want to do a seated leg press or a seated row or something, fine. But those chair-based classes, the chair really should only be there for safety or for a spotter or something.
What in particular person who's in the wheelchair, whatever.
Of
But
course, right,
if you
right. If you
teach
come
to
in a
that level,
wheelchair,
everyone's
yeah.
going to be at that level. Yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. The reason I think it's ageist is because we don't do that to 25-year-olds, right? I mean, we don't have chair-based group fitness for 30-year-olds, right? Teenagers. Why do we do it for 70-year-olds, 80-year-olds, 60-year-olds? It just doesn't make sense. It lacks the progressive overload and the principle of specificity for people to even get better, right? In fact,
Right.
it's going to actually contribute to you having a lack of balance because we're not training you on your feet.
We're not training balance. Yeah.
Yeah.
And certainly not power. I would love to hear someone's question, any questions about what Dan said, whether it's about marketing or whether like he talked about the power training. Like, does anyone have a question about that? I'd love to hear from somebody besides myself. You can raise your hand, you can unmute yourself. Happy to hear, you can put it in the chat, but I would love to actually hear from you. So don't be afraid to unmute.
You're terrified to ask a question.
Yeah, after I just blasted everything, right?
Yeah.
Kind of scary.
You can type it in the chat. The chat's not too scary.
Yeah, the chat's not scary. I think Holly might be looking for the chat there. Or Holly, you want to unmute yourself? Are you looking to ask something? Nicole, I bet Nicole's calling bingo though. She may not be able to ask anything. She really wanted to get on though, but she said,
She's dual tasking. She's doing this and bingo at the
yeah,
same time.
she heard me say it. Nicole teaches aqua fitness with me for me at a 55 and older community, like a huge pool and just really, active people. But she is also a fitness director for Parks and Rec in Gilbert. Oh, we've got a question maybe it's just a comment from Kristen. Very informative and realistic. Thank you. Just getting into
Now you're on.
this world.
Am I on?
Retired.
Okay.
Can you hear
You have a
Holly?
question?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yep.
Holly.
All right, I'll wait. Okay, we got you back.
You had her muted, that's
I'm
why.
Harry said you had me muted.
Yeah, you put her on mute.
Yes.
Good.
I'm
going.
sorry, I muted you, Holly.
I don't.
Do you
I don't
have a
wanna
question for
interrupt the
Dan?
other- I do definitely have a couple.
Great.
I just want to clarify his definition of power over strength. Power, I would consider like if I'm doing chaotic running to really power up the arms and power up the legs, which isn't necessarily like when I use the bands or the buoys in the water, that would be more in my mind strength. Is that what he's alluding to? Power and strength, the differential?
So the main differential is power has a speed component. So
Okay, yeah.
if you're doing something in the water, for example, it has to be fast, right? So
Right.
let's say you have weighted, I know there are weighted implements you use in the water. Can you move them fast? And so power is strength times speed equals power. So power always has a strength component, but
Right.
the mistake is people sit down on a strength training machine, for example, and they do their 50 pounds or whatever, and they can't do it fast because it's heavy. So
Right.
there's no speed component. So all they're getting is strength. So
Okay.
power, sometimes the strength component has to get light enough that we can move it fast, right? And so
Yes.
think about things like a medicine ball slam or throwing something up in the air, jumping jacks, hops, anything where you have to move with an element of speed. Even things like chair stands or squats. If I do them as fast as I can, right? If I try to get up as fast as I can, that's a speed component. So there's power involved. If you think
Yeah,
about,
that's what I figured, but I wanted to make sure.
yeah. So if you think about, an odd situation where, let's say we show up to a community event, there's an outdoor picnic, right? And we get there and all of a sudden we realize, oh man, I see there's one great table over there, right? And I see Janice over here. I'm like, well, I got to beat Janice to that table, right?
Oh,
So
gotcha.
I got to get there faster, right? So
Yeah.
even walking fast has a power component to it, but obviously as soon as we start running, skipping, hopping, those sorts of things. So just think
Right.
moving a little bit quicker. Quick feet, right? Stepping fast,
Right.
stomping, all those, anything where there's a speed element is power.
Perfect. Okay. My other couple of comments are, I am 79 and I have some in my ones, particularly who's 92, who is incredible. And then I have some younger people. So I have a huge class of very different ages, and I'm very comfortable with that. And they're comfortable with me because I'm not a spring chicken. So they trust me when I ask them to do something, they're going, what? But I work and try and study a lot about proprioception and their connection to the balance moves and the neurons of the brain, because as you mentioned, the Alzheimer's and all of that component, trying to build new pathways. And it's really working. I see some, with Parkinson, all that there is a disconnect, but they're very happy to try it and do their best. And of course, that's only a win-win situation. But does your workshop combined with Cody, does that start to deal? I have studied and gotten a lot of moves on my own, but I'm always willing to learn.
Yeah.
Something
So
else.
Cody's brain fitness coach on the Thursday, the pre-conference workshop, is really going to dive deep into what we call dual task training, right? So
Yeah.
to really get those neural pathways growing, we have to add some cognitive challenges, some cognitive distractions, right? Some additional things. So if you think about a sport, for example, like pickleball, right? Pickleball always has dual tasking, right? Because I have the task of hitting the ball, but I also have the task of, wait a minute, I have to think about where my opponent's going to be in relation to where I hit the ball. And then I also have to think about where do I have to move to next. So there's multiple things that my brain has to be doing as opposed to just standing and hitting a ball back and forth, right?
Right.
Same thing in most sports have a dual task component. So that's one reason why sports are a great activity. So how do we do that in fitness, right? So Cody's workshop will do that. One of my workshops, the functional balance circuits, we will play some brain games where we will bring that in as well. And you're right. Anytime somebody tries something new, right? That's a new challenge for my brain, right? It's like, why can't I do this? Why can't I karaoke or grapevine? Why can't I step in a box? Why can't I, like she's telling me to step to the green dot and I'm stepping to the blue dot. What, like, because your brain is like, could you just give me one thing at a time, right? Like, I don't want to have to do
Nope.
multiple things. So anytime your brain is trying something new, right? That's great. Of course, eventually we want to master it, right? And then as soon as we master it, now we got to try something new again, right? So
Move on. Yeah.
as we
Great.
always want our brain growing, it's really no different, and it's fascinating to watch some of the research of little kids, right? We study little kids at 4, 5, 6. Why can't a 4-year-old skip? Because their brain hasn't learned that skill yet, right?
Yeah.
So skipping, galloping, hopping on one foot, hopping on 2 feet, all these gait patterns that kids learn, right? Well, your brain has to learn those movements, right? We got to be doing that in our 70s, 80s, and 90s too, with all sorts of different movements. And there's a lot of fun ways to do it. And we've got a lot of those planned for Fitness Fest. You'll definitely enjoy checking those workshops out.
I hope
Yeah.
so.
You will, yes.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, thank you. Thank you, Holly and Dan. We're gonna start wrapping it up. We still have time for questions for sure, but I just definitely wanted to and Jan Hertzfeld was just on the call, but I think she probably had to go to have dinner because she took Cody's brain fitness at IDEA, and she is, I mean, her business is taken off by storm. Like, I coach her as a business coach, and she just, it's like you said, I mean, this is where it's at. I mean, functional aging and brain fitness is really where it's at, and this is what we have to practice. And the dual tasking, like she has this whole program that she's working on. As a matter of fact, she will come to Cody's again at Fitness Fest because she's just a sponge for learning. And as a matter of fact, she is looking in the Phoenix area. And as a matter of fact, I talked to Nicole about it, about mentoring others, because we know it's, there's so many facilities that could use this program. So we're
Right.
excited about that. So on Thursday, April 3rd, Cody will be doing the brain fitness from 8:30 to 12:30. The girls will put the website, the link in the chat. And then from 1 to 5, Dan, you'll be doing the functional aging specialist. So, sponsored by FAI. You'll be doing that, which is what, you've done for many, many years. And it's just amazing. So you don't want to miss that. That's also Thursday, April 3rd. And then if you go to the website, I mean, it says sessions, and then it says the different days. You look at Thursday, and that's where you'll find those two. And then on Friday, Dan, you and Cody are both part of the roundtable, which is like all different great topics. And everyone gets to choose, I think, 5 different speakers and topics. So they'll probably choose you, Dan. And, and then, of course, Cody is doing strength and power training for functional longevity on Friday, April 4th. He's also doing corrective exercises to improve balance, like you mentioned, on Friday afternoon. Looks like you're getting up bright and early at 7:15 a.m. on Saturday, Dan. But think about that. That's 9:15 your time.
I will take every bit of time zone difference I can for that one. So
Yeah. Of course, you'll be coming off the Fitness Fest happy hour the night before, so hopefully you'll be okay. FAA functional balance circuits, clients over 50 is your early morning session, and then in the afternoon, exercise program designed for 55 and older. So I think I covered them all. So everything is on the website. You also have a webinar tomorrow.
yep.
Who's the speaker on that?
Oh, it's really one of our better looking speakers of all time.
Am I on? I'm not on.
It's me. I'm speaking. I'm hosting myself.
You're hosting yourself.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. I'll be talking about the functional aging training model and really giving sort of an overview and an introduction to the whole functional aging specialist course. Why we talk about the 6 domains of human function, and the complexity and simplicity of training older adults.
Yeah. Well, we just sent our this morning's newsletter mentioned that and talked about it. So if anyone on the call did not get that and needs that information, unless you handy, Dan, we can put it in the chat. So look for that newsletter, or we can we've got your email. We can put it in the chat if you need that.
They can always go to our website, functionalaginginstitute.com, and all our webinars upcoming are
Yeah.
on there. So I know Cody has a brain fitness one coming up.
Great.
I've got the functional aging one tomorrow. We've got, we actually have two really fun ones later in February. We have 2 functional aging training studio owners on, one who's been doing this for over 20 years and another one who I helped her open in 2014, I believe, when FAI launched. She was like, hey, I kind of like this thing. I think I want to do this too. So she opened a studio, which was the first ever in Saskatchewan, which doesn't really mean a lot because nobody lives in Saskatchewan, but she thought it was pretty cool to be like, hey, I'm the first ever in my province to
Oh, that's another embellished story, right?
right. I'm like,
I'm the
Shelley,
best, but I'm the only, right?
you're the first fitness studio and what, the third fitness business in the whole province?
Yeah.
She really made headway on the fact that she was the first and only fitness studio focused on people over 50 in the whole province of Saskatchewan. So she's in Saskatoon. So those 2 webinars are upcoming. So I always tell people, just go to our website, look at our webinar calendar. We've got
Well,
webinars.
and we just put it, my people, Plexi put it in the chat, and she also made a beautiful, I don't know if you want to take a look at it, Dan, this beautiful image that we're gonna share social media wise about all the workshops you're doing. So
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
that's in the chat. And then of course the Fitness Fest.
If you have an image with me
Anyway.
included and it's still beautiful, you've got some amazing designers. So that's what can I say?
It's nice to have people who can make us all look good, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'm still using my my headshot from 10 years ago. My husband goes, why are you still using that? Yeah, that's right, dude. That's right. Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns? You can always reach us on our website, an email, support@fitnessfest.org or Janice@fitnessfest.org. We'd love to talk to you. If you missed anything, this is of course being recorded, but if you missed anything and you can't grab the webinar in the chat or what Dan is doing at Fitness Fest, reach out to us. But again, it's fitnessfest.org/ oh, this says event. Okay. All right. Is that the direct link? I guess it
It's
is.
all the
Miranda
same.
knows
It
more
goes-
than me.
it goes
So
the same.
I think you just need fitnessfest.org/FF25, but that link will probably work as well. And yeah, the webinar information's in here too. So what time is that tomorrow, Dan?
Oh gosh, I believe it's at noon Eastern, but I'd have to double check myself, but I believe it's at
Yeah.
noon Eastern.
Well, as long as you'll show up, then that's good.
I'll be there. Yeah, it's
You'll
either
be there.
we do them at noon or 1 Eastern, and they get mixed up from week to week, but I believe it's at noon tomorrow.
Yeah. And that link was right, Miranda. It goes right to it. So you're good. Yeah, we're all good. Okay. It's nice to have several links that all go to the right place, right? So, okay. Thank you so much, Dan. I think this is great. We look forward to seeing you in sooner than we, sooner
Few
than
months.
we know it.
Yeah.
And yeah. And we hope to see you on the webinar. They sound great in the next few weeks. So, all right. Thank
Thanks
you.
so much.
Thanks
Good night.
everybody for hopping on.
Yep.